Hello, it's Sonia here with The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today we are going to do something on this channel I've never done before. We're going to be making a sweater, an actual adult size sweater, not a child or a doll size. I have made sweaters for myself before, but this is my first adult size design. A sweater design that I'm going to be sharing with you. So to do this project, I'm going to be using an eye hook or a 5.5mm hook, and I am going to be using Hobby Lobby yarn. It's number 4. I love this yarn. I'm going to use 2 colors. I have this blue, and then I have this multicolored. We're going to make some stripes with this guy. And this sweater pattern is going to be more of a recipe, and the size that I'm going to be demonstrating on the video is going to be, I would say, like a small medium. It's supposed to be like a slightly oversized sweater, like kind of reminds me, I grew up in the 80s, so those shaker style, you know, they were slightly oversized and just one of those like super comfy type sweaters. So that's the vibe that we're going for with this. So I'm going to be getting started with this one, and again, I'm going to be making size, I would say small medium. I tend to wear a smaller medium in clothing, and I will have written directions on Ravelry. I'll have the link below. And again, this is going to be a recipe because sweaters are hard. They're hard to fit, you know, to get the right size, because we're all, you know, made differently. We're all, you know, wonderful and unique in our own way, no matter what size we are. And, you know, there's no one size fits all. So I'm just going to use this as, I give it like as a recipe so that you can kind of tweak it to, you know, fit it to your body so that, you know, you have it how you like it. All right. So sorry I had to take a break because I could not find the center pull. So we're already off to a great start here. Now that I found the center pull, we can get started. So this sweater is going to be made top down, and it's going to be made entirely in the round. So when you're making this sweater, you will need to use stitch markers. So I'm just going to be using scraps of yarn. If you have actual stitch markers, you know, certainly feel free to use them. Hi, it's Editing Sonia here. So I just wanted to give you some numbers if you wanted to make larger sizes. Now these numbers are suggestions only. So if you wanted to go with your own numbers, what I would do is I would work a foundation single crochet that's dividable by 4. And they're going to be labeled as small, medium, large, extra large, and XX large. Start this pattern. Again, we're making it top down, neck down. We are going to be working 68 extended single crochet. So if you've never done that before, you're going to chain 2. In the second chain from our hook, pull up a loop. You're going to chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Insert your hook right back in that chain there, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, or chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So now we have created 2 extended single crochets. So we're going to keep going until we have 68. Alright, so I have my 68 foundation single crochet here, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a circle. So I'm just going to pull this guy around. This is my first stitch there, focus, thank you. And we are just going to join with a slip stitch in that. Alright, so now we have joined, and what we're going to be doing from here on out is going to be working in continuous rounds. So you will want to use a stitch marker to mark your last stitch. Alright, so we have marked our last stitch, and now we are going to get started on this. So now this is turned into round 1 here, and we're going to start round 2. So I'm going to just chain 1 and I'm going to work a half double crochet right in that same stitch. And I'm just going to continue to half double crochet around. And at the end of my round 1, I will have 68 half double crochet. Alright, so I'm just going to keep going, working my half double crochet around, and this is going to be like the collar part of the sweater, the neckline. Alright, so I'm almost done my round 1 here, or round 2, I'm sorry, round 2. So just going to work my final 2 stitches, pop that guy out, and we're going to pop it right back in because we want to keep that last stitch marked. We are not joining, that's why we are marking this stitch. So it creates more of a seamless look. That's what we're going for. Alright, so what we're going to do for round 3 is we are going to be working in the 3rd loop. And if you've done some projects with me before, you know I really like this technique. I think it's really nice. So, you know, I'm gonna, with this series that I'm doing of these patterns, you know, I have to do this technique at least once. Alright, so the 3rd loop in the half double crochet, if you know, this is the normal top of the stitch, but if you kind of turn it this way, you can see there's another loop. And so we are going to pop our hook into that loop, and I can link this stitch. I go into more detail with it, you know, I take it a lot more slowly, but we're just linking that. Now if you're worried about it's slightly gapped here, when you're finishing weaving in your ends, you can just take this end and kind of just clean up that little gap and it'll be fine. Alright, so we're just going to keep going, working in that 3rd loop. Just working half double crochet. So just very, very easy basic stitch. It's just, you know, still working the half double crochet, but we're just placing the hook in that 3rd loop. And I just like the way it looks. I think it looks like it's just a nice stitch. And also for a sweater, it's kind of a nice, like, squishy, comfortable stitch, and you can, it's fairly, you know, compact, so you can just wear this sweater without having to worry about, you know, everything showing. Alright, so I have finished up round 3 of our neckline here of our sweater. So what we're going to do is for round 4, this part, this side that's facing for the neckline is actually the wrong side. So I'm going to take this stitch marker out, and you'll understand where I'm going with this in a minute. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to pop my stitch marker in my first stitch here, and you'll understand in a minute. And I'm going to turn my work so that the wrong side is now facing. I'm actually going to chain 1, 2, just to give me a little wiggle room, that's all. So now this is actually going to be the right side, and I'm doing it like this because I actually like the way the wrong side looks when you're working in the 3rd loop, and I did want to have a little, you know, difference with the neckline, you know, compared to the rest of the body of the sweater. Okay, so we're going to get ready for round 4, and we are going to be now starting to divide for, this is going to be made raglan, I'm not sure how to say that, raglan shaping, I think that's the right pronunciation. And so we're going to be dividing up for the sleeves and the back and the front. So let's get started with that. And this part here is going to be the back because we have our little seam there. So to get started, we are just going to be working regular half double crochet. So right in that same stitch, we're going to work your half double crochet. We're not doing 3rd loop yet. So half double crochet there, and our 2nd half double crochet. So our next stitch, we're going to get ready to start for the raglan shaping. So our next stitch, you're going to work a V stitch. So it's going to be consisting of half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet. As I said before, this is the back. So now what we're going to do is we are going to work 12 stitches. So 1. Hi, it's Editing Sonia back again. So I just wanted to give you some numbers for the sizes because we're starting to divide. So for the small, as I said, you're going to work your 2 stitches, then you work your V-stitch and you'll work 12 stitches. And that is the same for the medium. So when you work the size medium, if you choose to go by these numbers, you're going to work your 2 stitches, then you're going to work your V-stitch, then you'll work the 12 stitches. If you wanted to make the large size and use these numbers, then again, you're going to start by working 2 stitches, and then your V-stitch, and then you're going to work 14 stitches. And then if you're working the extra large, it's going to be the same as the large. So again, 2 stitches, your V-stitch, and then your 14 stitches. And then the double X large is 2 stitches, the V-stitch, and then 16 stitches. So now we're going to divide up again for the sleeves. So we're going to do the same V-stitch that we did over here. So you're going to do half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet in that same stitch, just like that. All right, so now we're going to work across the front. So now we are going to double crochet in the next 20 stitches. So 1. Hi, it's Editing Sonia back again. So we are going to give out some other numbers here. So we worked the first section of our for dividing here with our V-stitches. So for the second section, after you have worked your 12 stitches and your V-stitch for size medium, then you're going to be working 20 stitches across, and it's the medium is the same for size small when you're getting started. And then after that, you're going to again work your V-stitch, and then you're going to repeat what you did on the other side, work 12 stitches, and then just work your V-stitch and then continue stitching to the end. So for size large, what you want to do is after your V-stitch, you will work 22 stitches, then you're going to work your V-stitch again, and then you're going to be working 14 stitches. And X large is the same as the large, the V-stitch, 22 stitches, V-stitch, and then 14 stitches, V-stitch, and then just continue working even until you get to your end. And then for the double X large, you're going to be working your after your V-stitch, you're going to work 24 stitches, then your V-stitch, then you will work 16 stitches, and then your V-stitch, and then just continue to work even. Okay, so I think we worked 20. You want to make sure your stitch count is correct if you're making this size. Alright, so I just checked and it's definitely 20 stitches. Alright, so we're going to work our next V-stitch. So it's going to be half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet. So this part here, this is the front. So you can see back here, you want the little join in the back. And you'll see that even in store-bought sweaters where, the seaming is usually more so in the back. All right, so we are going to keep going. We're going to be working the other sleeve. So we're going to work 12 stitches. So we're going to go just working our 12 half double crochet across. Alright, so we have our 12 half double crochet, so now we need to work our next V-stitch of half double crochet, chain 2 in that same stitch to create the other sleeve here. So there you go. And now we're going to finish up the back area. So our back should be consisting of 18 stitches because it's going to be the same as the front. The front we worked 20. But we already started the back right here. So we're just going to keep going, working the rest of the back area. Alright, I'm at my last stitch here. I'm going to pop out that stitch marker and work stitch 18. And then we have stitch 19 and 20 for the back. And our round 4 is complete. So I'm going to mark that stitch because you do want to keep marking your stitches to just make your life a whole lot easier. Alright, and we're not joining. So this is our back. This is our front of our sweater. Alright, so now we're going to get ready to work round 5 because now we've established our sleeves and our front and our back. And we're going to continue working in the third loop now. So we started off working the third loop, then we took a short little break, and now we're going to go back to the third loop. And we're going to be working in that for most of the pattern. So you're just going to turn, and there's that third loop there. And you're just going to work your half double crochet in that third loop all the way around until you get to your V stitches. So you're just going to be working in each half double crochet, including the half double crochet with the V stitch, so which we did. So we started off with 2 stitches and worked the V, but now we have the 3, and now we're ready to work in the chain 2 space. So we're just going to work in that chain 2 space, working the V stitch, the half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet. And then you're going to continue working in your third loop. There she is. And you're just going to keep going all the way across or around till you get to your next V stitch. So this part is the sleeve. So I'm just working in that third loop. And I'm not sure when I'm going to introduce my other color. I'm going to have some stripes. So you can add colors wherever you want to, or you can just make it all in a solid color, or even I think variegated yarn would work really well with this pattern. I'm not always a huge fan of variegated yarn projects with certain stitches, but this is a very simple stitch, so you know, it's more the yarn is the star, and so if you're, you know, using more of a busy yarn, I think it would look really, really nice, to be honest. Alright, so now we're at our next V stitch there, working in that chain 2 space. And just keep going, working your half double crochet in the third loop all the way around, and then in your chain 2 space you work your V stitch, which is half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet. So as I said before, this is eventually going to be part of the sleeve, so you know, as we're adding the V stitch in there, we're growing this sleeve. It is getting bigger. But we got a couple more rows to go before, or rounds. We're working in the round, not rows. Until we are forming those armholes for the sleeve. So I'm just going to keep going for round 5 here, working my half double crochet in the third loop, and I'll meet you back. Alright, so I have finished up my round 5. So I can't remember if I said stitch count for round 4. At the end of round 4, it was 72 stitches, and then after each round, you're going to increase, after round 4, when you'll be increasing by 8 stitches each time after round 4. Because during round 4, you only increase by 4 stitches, so we started off at 68, and then at the end of round 4, we had 72, but now we're going to be adding 8 stitches, so it's going to be, you know, you're going to add 8 stitches each time. So if you can even probably play around with these numbers, you know, for your own particular size, and just know that you're going to increase 8 stitches each time. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to repeat round 5. So just what we've been doing, and I already figured out my calculations, so I'm going to be working up to round 23, and then I'm going to get ready to be working some sleeves. So I'm just going to keep going, working up to round 23, and then I will meet you back, and then we'll work on the sleeves. Alright, so I have completed my 23 rounds here, so you can see and I was figured out my color combination there. Now I just worked in continuous rounds, so my joins in the back are not completely even, which I don't really care because it's the back. And this is the front, so you can't tell at all with the joints. So with that, you know, it doesn't look uneven in the front is what I'm trying to say. So if it really bothers you, if you are using different colors, then you can join in your first stitch, chain 1, and then work your half double crochet in the 3rd loop all the way around and do that, and then your joins will line up a little bit better. Alright, so now we're going to get ready to work the sleeves, and as you can see, I've still been using my stitch marker. This is my last stitch of round 23. Again, I'm making the small size, small medium size, and at the end of 23 rounds I have a total of 224 stitches. Now in the written pattern I'm probably not going to get too much on stitch count because it's not that important, because this is a basic stitch. Not to say that it's not important, but it's more about like the fit for you and how it works for you. Alright, so let's get started for round 24, and we're going to start dividing up for the sleeves, because right now the armholes too, so that we can work the sleeves later. So what you're going to do is I already created my first stitch, and you're just going to continue to half double crochet across in the 3rd loop. Now another thing is I carried my colors, so I have less ends to weave in. So there you go. In case you were wondering, again, it's not going to show, but if that, you know, you can cut your colors if you would prefer instead of carrying them, but I hate weaving in ends, so I try to avoid it as much as possible. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going, working my half double crochet in the 3rd loop until I get to my first set of V stitches. Alright, so I am coming up on my first V stitch, so I just have to work one more stitch. Alright, so I have worked up to my V stitch. So what we're going to do is we are going to turn this guy into an armhole. So it's very easy. So you are going to work 1 half double crochet in that chain 2 space. So you'll just stitch across till your first chain 2 space. Then you're going to chain 10. Hi, it's Editing Sonia back again. So I'm just going to give some suggestions when working the armholes depending on what size that you've made, and I hope you're trying on your sweater as you go along because that will really help. So once you have gotten close to the armpit area, then you're going to be ready to work the chains. So I have in the video for my size small that I'm making, I have chain 10. That might work for the other sizes as well, but you could also make less chains if you wanted, or you could make more chains. I really wouldn't probably make more than 20 chains, but it just depends on the fit and how you want your sleeves. If you want them fairly snug and tight, then you might want to do a little bit less chains. Now when you are working the chains, make sure your chains are an even number. So if you wanted less, then you could either work 4 or 6 or 8, or you could try 10 or 12. So just make sure it's an even number. Alright, so now we have created our little armhole here. So there we go. And then you're going to half double crochet across until you get to your next set of your next V stitch there. So when you're making yours, let's say you were using the same counts as myself, but you can try this on as you go, and if you feel like that you need to go down a few more rounds, you can certainly do that before you start your armholes. That's completely fine. Like I said, this is a customizable pattern. Now if you want to, make the exact, count as I did, that's, completely fine too. Alright, so I'm going to keep going until I get to my next set of V-stitches. Alright, so I have worked to my next chain 2 space, so I'm just going to work a half double crochet there, and I'm going to chain 10. Okay, so I've got my 10 chains, and then I'm just going to go to my next chain 2 space here and work my half double crochet in that chain 2 space. And then I'm just going to continue working, this is the back part here, and to my stitch marker there. So pretty easy round, just creating those armholes. So I'm going to keep going, just working my half double crochet in the third loop to my stitch marker. Alright, so I have worked up to my stitch marker there, and now we have armholes, which is exciting. Okay, so our next round is we are going to, sorry, my other yarn is annoying. Alright, so we are going to continue to half double crochet in the third loop until we get to our chain 10, and I'll show you what we're going to do. Alright, so we're just about to our chain. Okay, so now we've worked to our chain. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to work in the chain, not around the chain. So however you like to work in your chain, you're going to work your 10 half double crochet in the chain, because you want to have a loop exposed, because you're going to need that loop so that you can work your sleeve. I just want to make sure I worked my 10 stitches in the chains. Yep, so we're good to go. Alright, so you're going to continue to just half double crochet all the way around until you get to your next. That other color, she's just going wild there. Until you get to your next chain 10, you're going to work in the chain and then just keep going until you get to your stitch marker, and then you're just going to keep working around and around and around until your sweater is long enough. Now if you want to check your sweater for fit as you go along, now if you feel like you need to add some stitches for, you know, make it a little bit larger, you can certainly do that. You can, you know, increase where you feel like, and increasing, all you need to do to increase is, let me just work this stitch here, and I'll show you the next one. So if you feel like you need to add some stitches, actually I skipped a stitch, look at that gap. There we go, let's get it right. Okay, so we'll work in the next guy. So let's say, you know, you wanted to add a little bit more volume to your sweater. You would just pop in 2 stitches wherever you would like. Now I suggest when you do the increasing to kind of do it in strategic areas so it's not going to be super noticeable. So I wouldn't really increase, you know, maybe right in the front, but maybe like around under the arm area, you know, in the back. You know, you can kind of, you know, do it strategically if you need to increase. I'm not going to be increasing. I'm just going to be working even. And I've already kind of calculated how many rows, or rounds, I'm sorry. So I'm going to work up to till I have 69 rounds, and then I'll show you how to do the band on the bottom. So I'm going to keep going, working my 69 rounds, or up to 69 rounds, and I will meet you back. Hello, this is Editing Sonia here. So after you worked your armholes, then you're going to be working even until your sweater is long enough, and then after your sweater is long enough, then we will do a little hem design on the bottom. So what you might want to do with your sweater, I highly encourage you to try it on as you go, and you might want to do some further shaping. So I explained about the increasing, which is simply just adding 2 stitches in a stitch, and I suggest doing it evenly around. But you also might want to do some decreasing if you wanted to have a more fitted sweater. So I suggest doing that, you know, again, evenly, and I'm going to show you how I would do decreases so that they're very hidden. So I just have my little circle here. I worked 20 stitches. So depending on your stitch count, you know, you might want to, you know, figure out the math there. So what I mean by that is 5 times 4 is 20. So I'm going to decrease evenly in a sequence of 5. So if you had, let's say, 100 stitches around, then, you know, you might want to decrease evenly by 10, or you just might want to decrease very gradually, so you could just kind of do it on the sides of your sweater. So what I mean by that, so let me show you the decrease stitch. So we're going to decrease by 5. So we're just going to work in the 3rd loop. So 1, 2, 3. So I've worked 3 stitches and I'm doing a sequence of 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull up a loop in my next, well, I'm going to insert my hook in my next stitch. I'm not going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Then I'm going to insert my hook in the next stitch, working in the 3rd loop. So now I have my 4 loops. I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2 of those. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the remaining 3 to complete the stitch. So now we've worked the decrease, so we can do that again. It's in a sequence of 5. So whatever your sequence is, let's say it's a sequence of 10, you're going to work 8 stitches evenly, and then stitches 9 and 10 will be your decrease. So this is stitch 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to decrease again, 4 and 5. So just pulling up a loop in the next one, and then in the next one, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the remaining 3, and we're going to decrease 2 more times in our sequence of 5. So 1, 2, 3, and then stitches 4 and 5, and then 1 more decrease. And then stitches 4 and 5. Now I'm going to demonstrate this again because you'll be doing some decreasing for the sleeves, but as I said before, if you wanted to add some further shaping of your sweater, you know, certainly do that. Now I don't encourage you to decrease like a whole bunch of rounds at once, because that's going to really pull at your sweater. So what I would do, or what I would suggest, I mean, you can certainly do whatever you would like, that when you work a decrease round, I would then work a couple rounds even, just to kind of help straighten out the stitches. So we decrease 4 times, so we should have 16 stitches. So I'm just, you know, would work a couple rounds even, and then, you know, go back and work more decreasing if you would want to. And as you can see, the decreases are pretty hidden, like you really can't see it too much when you're doing this method, which is why I really like it. Now you don't have to decrease if you don't want to. That's just if you would want to have a little bit more shaping, you know, then this is an easy way of doing that shaping. Same goes with the increasing. When you do the increases, I don't suggest just like increasing every round. Like I would increase a round and then work a couple rounds even, increase a round, work a couple rounds even until, you know, you have your sweater, you know, if you wanted to have more volume to your sweater. So I hope that's helpful with the shaping, and you're just going to keep stitching around until your sweater is long enough, and then I'm going to meet you back when it's time to work the hem part of the sweater. Alright, so here is my sweater here. This is the front part of the sweater, and I'm showing it to you upside down. because I have worked the amount of rounds that I want to work here. So I ended up working a total of 70 rounds total. So measuring or counting from the collar area, the neckline area, all the way down to the bottom here of the sweater. So I have worked 70 rounds here. So now I'm just going to, trying to turn it. So here is the back of the sweater, and I kept marking my last stitch with the stitch marker because you can see it creates a nice even look there. We're going to finish this guy up, this part, before we get to the sleeves. So what I'm going to do, like we did with the neckline area, I'm going to take out my stitch marker here, and I'm going to place it, I'm going to mark the stitch right next to it here. So this was my last stitch. This would technically be my first stitch, but I'm going to mark that because we are going to be turning. We're still going to be working half double crochet, but I just want to differentiate between the body of the sweater, and then this is kind of like a faux ribbing, I guess, in a way. Alright, so I'm going to chain one, I'm going to turn, and now we're going to be working on the wrong side. So for this round, you're just going to be working half double crochet in both loops. So right in that first stitch, I'm working my half double crochet, and I'm just going to continue to half double crochet all the way around. And this would be round 71. So your counts might be different because you can make this as long as you would like, as short as you would like. The nice thing with making top down is you can try it on and see, how you like the length, which is really, really nice when working, making top down items. So I'm just going to keep going here, just working my half double crochet all the way around, and then I will meet you back. Okay, so I worked on the wrong side here. So here you can see the wrong side, right side. This is my last stitch, so I am going to pop my stitch marker right back in there. And then I'm going to get ready for, this would be round 72. And now we are going to go back to working in the third loop. So I'm not joining, I'm just jumping in, working in that third loop, just as we'd been doing. And so you can see on the right side here, so here's the right side, it does create just a little bit of difference there, just so you can differentiate between the body of the sweater and then like it's not exactly a ribbing, but kind of like a faux ribbing there. So I'm not sure how many more rounds I want to work. Okay, focus, thank you. So I'm going to see how I like this round, working another round of ribbing. I'll probably try it on, and then I will get back to you and see if I want to do more. And you can certainly, make it as long or short. I mean, if you like it like that, then you could just join in your last stitch and, call it a day if you wanted to. So I'm going to just see how I like it here. Actually, we might do one more round of single crochet once just so it looks similar to the neckline, because the neckline we started off with foundation single crochet, and then we started our half double crochets. I'm all about the symmetry, so I'm gonna keep going here, and then I will figure out how exactly I want this to look. Alright, so I will meet you back at the end of this round. Okay, so I have finished up my second round, or actually it's not second round, technically it's round 72. For me, you might have a different number. You can definitely make this as long as short as you would like. So what we're going to do is, I actually like it with just the 2 rounds here for my little band here at the bottom of my sweater. So what I'm going to do to finish this up is I'm just going to work a regular round of single crochet. So I'm just working a single crochet just like normal in my next stitch all the way around, just to finish up my band here, my waist. It's not really around the waist, a little below the hips. It's kind of a longer sweater for me, but I think I might make another one and make it a little bit shorter. I'm not sure, in different, maybe in DK weight yarn. This is worsted weight, to see how it looks. But I'm just going to work that single crochet all the way around just to kind of give it a little bit of a finished look there. And then at the end of my round, I am going to join in my first stitch with a slip stitch, and then I can cut my yarn. So I'm going to do that, and then we will get ready to work on the sleeves. All right, so here we go. We are going to start working on some sleeves. So here's my sweater. I've actually got one sleeve done. We need to make two, so this one was like the experimental sleeve, but I've got the formula down that I like for this one, so I'm going to show you how I did that. All right, so what you're going to want to do is, so here is our armhole opening, and you're going to want to attach your yarn. So let me get my yarn here. Oh, and I did want to share when we were working on the waistband area here, and our final round was single crochet round. What I ended up doing, and I liked this a lot to kind of help with some shaping, I've been using my eye hook, or 5.5mm hook, throughout this entire sweater. But when I came to the waist area and working that last single crochet round with the eye hook, I just wasn't loving the way it looked. It kind of was like flaring out a little bit, and I on myself I didn't like that. You might like that on yourself, but for me I just wasn't loving it. So what I ended up doing was, for my last round, I bumped down to actually a G hook, or a 4.25mm, and I worked that last single crochet round with the G hook, and then I tried it on, and I liked the fit so much better. So if you're finding that if it's flaring out, you're not liking that, you know, bump down a hook size, because often, you know, when you're, let's say you're making a knitted project, like if you're working a hat or if you're working cuffs, whatever, they often will have you use smaller needles, and then when you're working in the body of the project, then you bump up to larger needles. So it's kind of the same thing with crocheting. You can do the same thing. So instead of actually doing decrease stitches to kind of help with fit, which has its place as well, you know, play around with your hook sizes, you know, kind of play around with it to help it, you know, to fit you. And when you do that, if you wanted to make another one, I suggest just writing down what you did, because you think you're going to remember, and you're not. So yeah, so that's just a little tip, you know, you can adjust your hook size and to help with your fit. All right, so let's get back to sleeves. So here we go, we are at our armhole. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to attach your yarn and this bottom part. So this part up here, this would be your shoulder area up here. So this is like the armpit area right here. So I'm going to get my yarn, and I'm going to attach it more towards the back area. So this is the back of my sweater. So you just want to differentiate between your back and your front. So as you can see, where I've used different color yarns because of the continuous rounds, they don't line up exactly. So that's the back. So I'm just going to put my yarn like right here and attach it. All right, and then this is the unused chains. So when we chained 10, these are the other side of the chain there. That's why you want to work in the chain, not around the chain, so that you can do that. All right, so I'm going to chain 1, and I'm just going to work a half double crochet in that same stitch. So for my armhole, I need to work 65 half double crochet. So when you're working in the 10 chains, you're just going to work in the chain. Then you're going to come to this area. So what you want to do to keep with your pattern is you're going to want to work in your third loop all the way around to give it that seamless look. So let me just get to that area there. Now, your stitch count will probably be different unless you're doing exactly what I did. But let's say, you know, if you're taller than me, you know, broader shoulders, whatever, you need to make a larger size, then, you know, this size might not work for you. So you might need to add more stitches. So what I suggest is, I have 65. You want it to be dividable by I would go no higher than 15. So 65 divided by 5 is 13 because you will need to do some decreasing. So I started off my decreasing or together stitches by 13. So I suggest no lower than 10. So let's say if you wanted to add 80 stitches around or 70, you know, that's divisible by 10. So I would do no lower than 10, no higher than 15. So 15 times 5, oh dear goodness, let me think. What is that? So 15 times 5 is 75. So let's say, you know, you put 75 stitches, you know, that works because 15 times 5 is 75, and then you would start decreasing with 15. So just keep that in mind. Don't go any higher than 15. Don't go any lower than 10. So you could also do 80 stitches. You know, 10 times 8 is 80. That works out really well too. So just keep that in mind. So I have 65 here. So now I'm coming to this area. So what I did here, because you don't want any holes showing, is I'm going to stitch right in here. So you just kind of need to eyeball it a little bit to kind of figure out. This is where we did the raglan area, the chain 2s. Okay, so now I am at my half double crochet. So this is my first one. I'm sorry the yarn's a little dark, but I'm going to turn her on its side and just work a half double crochet in that third loop. So I'm just going to continue. So this is going to be up around the shoulder. And I need a total of 65 half double crochet because you want it the same. So when you make your first sleeve, I highly suggest just writing it down, or, you know, if you use like an iPad or your phone, you know, somewhere, just have it documented what you did for, this is my round 1. So again, I have 65, you know, you probably will have a different number. So you want to make sure you have the same number for each sleeve. If you have a great memory and can remember it, then, you know, don't write it down, but I highly suggest that you do. So I'm going to continue working my 65 half double crochet. Okay, so you can see here that we have a different sweater than the one I had been working on. I had done sleeve directions for the blue one that you've been seeing, and I did one sleeve and it just wasn't working. I didn't like it. So I changed it a little bit, so I wanted to share what I did. So you will have to play around with the sleeves because everybody, you know, has different shaped arms. And so I'm going to show you what I did just to kind of give you some hints and tips on how to work the sleeves. Alright, so I worked my 65 half double crochet around my armhole, and now I'm going to work round 2, and I'm working in continuous rounds. So I popped in my stitch marker, and what I did and what I found I liked better, because when you're working the sleeve, you want it to, you know, it starts out, this would be the armhole, and then you want it to kind of gradually, you know, go down towards the wrist. Now it depends on what the look you're going for. So if you want more of a boxy sleeve, then you just might want a slight graduation. You know, but I kind of wanted something in between a boxy and more of a fitted sleeve. So you don't want to do all your increases right at the top, and that's what I was finding. They were just like too jammed at the top, so then it got thin too quickly, and it was kind of like bulky around my upper arm. It just looked weird. So what I did is I spread out the decreases, and I also dropped down a hook size, and that gave me more of my more gradual, streamlined look. And it was, you know, in between the boxy and the fitted. So I'm going to bust out my H hook, and you can't even tell with the pattern at all. Well, this is also very multicolored, but the other one I did use the H hook, and that it just turned out so much nicer, I thought. So I have my H hook. So round 2, what I did is I just worked an even round, working in my third loop. So I'm going to find that third loop in that first stitch and work that half double crochet in the third loop. And so I'm just going to work even all the way around, and you can see I have my stitch marker there. So I'm going to work even all the way around for round 2. Alright, so I worked my second round even, and I am using my H hook or 5mm hook, so I bumped down. And so now I'm going to start decreasing. So as I said before, you want to start with a larger number, and since I have 65 half double crochet, I'm going to 5 times 13, 65. So I'm going to decrease by 13. So I'm going to be working, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to work even in my first 11 stitches. Okay, so I have worked 11 stitches. So now I need to decrease or work a together stitch. Same thing, I learned it as decrease. So how I like to do it is I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to insert my hook in my very next stitch, working in the third loop, so right there. And then I'm going to insert my hook in the third loop in the next stitch. So I've got my 4 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and just pull through the first 2. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the remaining 3. And that just creates a much neater and tidier decrease or together stitch than working a traditional half double crochet decrease stitch. I find those to be a bit bulky, and you don't want to, you don't really want to see the decrease in your sleeve. You just want it to be like a nice, gradual, decrease. So I'm going to continue that around. So I'm going to work my 11 stitches, and then I'll decrease the next 2. And at the end of my round, I will have a total of 60 stitches. So what I said in the previous video, which you're not even going to see that footage, is everyone's decreasing is going to be different. So before I had worked a decrease, and then I worked just 1 row even, and then I worked another decrease, and I ended up decreasing to 45 stitches, which was the magic number for me. But as I said before, I did all my decreases too quickly at the top. So what I found that looked a whole lot nicer, and you might want to play around with it yourself since you're making this to fit you, is, so I have a decrease round, and then I worked 3 rows even, and then I worked my next decrease round, then I worked 3 rounds even, and then my next one. So for you, you might want to work, depending, if you have a much larger opening here, you might want to work 4 or 5 even rounds in between your decreases. And also it just depends on what type of sleeve you want. Like I said, I'm kind of going for an in between a boxy and a more fitted sleeve. If you definitely want a more boxy sleeve that's straight, you might only want to decrease 1 or 2 times. So the nice thing with this pattern is you can try it on, you can see how it's looking around your upper arm area and how the decreases are going. So as I said before, I decreased to 45 stitches. So my final decrease was a decrease of 10. And in between I worked 3 rounds even. So that's what I wanted to share. And so I'm going to, and then I'm going to put you back to the blue sweater and show you how I did the cuff, because that's going to be the same, however you want. It's going to be similar to the waistband of your sweater. But I just wanted to share, how that worked. And again, you might not want to drop down a hook size, but for me, dropping down a hook size just gave me that nice gradual sleeve that I was looking for. But you might want to stay with the same. You might even want to drop down 2 hook sizes. Let's say you wanted definitely a more fitted sleeve, then you could drop down 2 hook sizes when you got more to the wrist area, so that it gives you that, really nice gradual fitted, unless you want like a balloon sleeve at the top, but I didn't want that. I was just going for that nice gradual in between boxy and fitted look. So I'm hoping that makes sense. As I said before, this is not an exact, crochet by numbers, because, this is more of a tutorial to help you make a sweater that would fit you. So I will, so the next clip you're going to see the blue sweater, and I'm going to decrease in a sequence of 10 because I have 50 stitches, and then that's going to bring me down to 45 stitches. So for me, because I've already made one sleeve and I've tried it on numerous times, 45 is my magic number. So what and my cuff here, if you can see on my other sleeve, is about 2 inches wide. So depending on how wide you want your cuffs, you know, you want to try on your sweater. And again, you might want to make a 3/4 length sleeve sweater, but I wanted long sleeves, and you know, I liked my cuff about 2 inches. You might like your cuff smaller, so just keep that in mind about like where you want your cuff to fall on your arm or your wrist, and then I will show you how to make the cuff. And again, I decrease until I had 45 stitches. So I'm going to keep going doing my decrease round, and then I'll meet you back and show you how to work the cuff. Okay, so I've worked my other sleeve, and now we're going to get ready to work the cuff. So I tried on my sweater numerous times to see, you know, how far it was laying down on my arm. Now you can make your sleeve, you know, I wanted mine all the way down to my wrist area, but if you wanted yours to be 3/4 length or shorter or longer, whatever you wanted to do, that's completely fine. Okay, so we're going to finish this guy up, and we're going to work the cuff. So what you're going to want to do is we are going to be working on the wrong side like we did for the collar area. So what I'm going to do is take out my stitch marker, and I am going to, so I'm going to put it in this stitch here because this is now the last stitch. So we're going to be working on the wrong side. So you're going to want to chain 1 first, just to give yourself a little wiggle room. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to work even all the way around, and I'm actually switching to a smaller hook. As I said before, you can play around with different hook sizes with shaping as well if you wanted. So I just wanted my cuff a little bit more narrow. So I'm bumping all the way down to a G hook. I actually really like the way that turned out. So I'm working my half double crochet in both loops for this round, and I'm just going to half double crochet all the way around. So I will meet you back at the end of this round. Okay, so I'm still using my smaller hook here, and you don't have to, like I said before, use whatever hook size that you want. You know, I'm just using it because it just makes the cuff a little bit smaller, and I just really like the way it looks. So I've marked my last stitch, and I am going to be working back in the 3rd loop for the next 2 rounds. So we're still doing continuous rounds here, just to avoid that seam. I mean, it has a little bit of a seam, but not too bad. Alright, so this is round 46, and then round 47 I'm also going to be doing the same thing, just working in the 3rd loop all the way around. So I'm going to do that, and I'll meet you back. Alright, so we have finished up that round. So this is how wide my cuff is, and I like the width of that. I think that's fine. So once you've determined how wide you want your cuff, then you can just single crochet around for your final round. And again, I'm using my smaller hook, and that's just a personal preference. I like the way it looks. So you're just going to single crochet around, and then when you get to your very last stitch, then you're going to join with a slip stitch in your first stitch. And then your sweater will be done. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to weave in your ends. So you'll notice here is the finished sleeve here on the other one, is where we worked in continuous rounds. There is a very slight gap here. So what you can do to kind of just clean that up a little bit if it really bothers you is just take your tail, and what I would do is, what I'm going to do is I'll just weave in that end and kind of just cinch that guy closed. So that's just a way of, you know, helping to clean things up with finishing, just to kind of give it that more polished look. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. This was definitely more of a recipe, and with like myself, when I make work from recipes like cooking, I kind of tweak things and, you know, kind of put my own spin on it, and that was kind of my goal with this pattern. So I hope you enjoyed this pattern, and I thank you so much for watching.